Welcome. My name is Marty Major with FLIR Security's TCX Training Department. We're here today to talk about users and user groups. You'll notice I'm already in Admin Center and I'm highlighted in the sidebar on my users and groups. And you can see the system comes out of the box with one group, a users group, which includes everybody in the system. And as you can see, one user, the system admin or the admin account. Now it's very easy to add a user or a user group right from here. I could easily do that. But what I generally try to do is use my wizards. We have a nice wizard that walks you right through the whole setup of the group, including adding new users, etc. So to me, it makes a lot more sense. It keeps everything nice and easy. But again, you could use either method that you like or are comfortable with. So if we come down here to the users and group wizards, we simply choose it and we start to walk ourselves right through it. The first one is to name the group itself. We'll go ahead and create a guards group. It's a nice easy one. Doesn't really need a description, but you can put something in here that's only available here in Admin Center. And once we have the groups named available, we assign it to the actual system itself and hit next. Now, as you can see, there's only one current user in the entire system, the system administrator, which is right up here. We could easily add some new users right here. So if we wanted to add one guard, maybe Jim, and we'll use him. We'll just call him Jim throughout. We could use an email address right here. We would put one in here if we wanted to assign this person as a recipient for an alarm, etc. And we had an SMTP server set up to be able to do that. However, at this moment, we don't really actually need it, so I'm going to leave that blank. So we'll throw Jim in there, and we'll create another user. We'll call him Bob. Nice and easy. And we'll just create this down. Now notice it's letting me choose the same password I'm using, Bob, also for the password, simply because my system is allowing me to do that. If we went into the system, we could actually be able to control those abilities or not. A lot of times using the same password as the username, not a wise move in the security field. But either way, we've got some Bob and Jim and the system administrator. So to add to our guards group, we simply take Bob and Jim and move them over here, and now they are part of the guards group. And as we're going through this wizard, what we have to actually determine is in this privilege sets section, what we're trying to do is develop a baseline stance. Like, we've got to determine what sort of rights will these people get. Now, this is a guards group that I'm creating. Undefined, you can see no access to anything. Maybe this is just a placeholder. You're creating groups, you don't know what they're going to get, so maybe you would choose undefined. Now keep in mind, any of these choices that I actually do choose, I can easily change these on the fly by either the guard group itself or the individuals within the guards group at my leisure. So this is just a starting point. And based on all of these things that it's giving me here, you can see the different choices that I've got right here. Full access to Control Center, except for a few things. Maybe my guards need a little bit more. So I go to Advanced User, full access to all operations in Control Center. And it sounds like a good starting point for me, for my guards group. So I simply hit next. Now this, access rights and advanced privileges, these two things go sort of hand in hand. And the only thing we really have to understand are these three fields over here: allow, deny, and undefined. We'll talk about these up here in a second once we determine what these are, because these really will be determined based on what you're using in this particular group. So keep in mind, we're creating a guards group. I want my guards to have access, right? Access rights are the ability to see things or touch things or things that are in the system that are physical that I can actually have access to. For instance, notice I've already got a couple of layouts created in Control Center. So if these are my guards, generally I would probably definitely want them to have access to the guards layout. Just makes sense. It's cameras that I've assigned to this layout already in Control Center that I want my guards to be able to have access to. Now, managers layout. Now, these guys are not managers. Maybe I have some different cameras that I don't want my guards to have access to. Again, this is access rights. This is the ability to actually reach or even see or know that they're in the system certain items and devices. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to allow pretty much everything else. All my cameras, they're my guards. They need to see my cameras. If I had maps, I don't have any set up, but I'd probably want my guards to have access to those as well. And again, I'm giving them access to the guards layout, but not access to the manager's layout. Now, keep in mind, allow is pretty obvious. If I allow you to do something, you have rights to be able to do it. If I deny it, it's a little bit harder than just the allow, right? Because I can be in a series of groups, like Jim and Bob that I'm putting in this guards group. They can be in a different group also, where they're allowed to do things. So allowing simply allows you within this group to do things, but it's always ruled by any denies. So if Bob and Jim and they're in this group and I click any deny right here. It doesn't matter if I do give them or grant them rights, if I'm creating a different group and I want to call it, special guards or whatever it is. If I allow them the rights to the manager's layout in that other group, it doesn't matter. One deny, one hard deny will always win. No matter if this person is or the people that are in this group are in 50 other groups that allow it, one deny will always rule. And that's where we need to talk about undefined. Because undefined, what this does now, by adding this to the guards group, I'm not going to give them the ability to be able to see the manager's layout. So if the only group that Jim and Bob are in are this guards group, they will not be able to see the manager's layout because it's been undefined. This is a soft deny. A hard deny rules forever, right? Any other groups they're put in and I give them allow, it doesn't matter. One deny will always overrule them all. However, that's why we use undefined, because maybe I do want to put Jim or Bob or maybe somebody else from this guards group that I'll later add into a special guards group that will maybe give them access to this. So what I'll do is I'll set their original guards group to undefined. This means they can't have access to it unless they're in another group that actually allows them to do it. So if you leave it at undefined, and that's why if we get done with this, we'll go back to the users group, everything there's left undefined because we don't want to define specifically to deny rights right in the undefined. If you deny it one time, like I said, they'll never ever have access to this, no matter how many other groups they're in that they have access to based on this allow function. So again, we're going to allow them access to everything, but we are going to not define. So we're going to soft deny their ability to see the manager's layout. So at this point in time, in the beginning of the system, they will not have access to the manager's layout. If any of these people in this group further are in a different group that they do have allow access to, then they will be able to see this because this is a soft deny. It's only saying I'm not going to give you those rights, but I'm not going to physically deny you from getting those rights from other groups by hitting deny right here. So that's basically it. Once you understand the allowed, deny, and undefined and how they all work together, it's really a pretty easy and robust system. You can be very defined and very granular in the rights that you allow certain people within certain groups, where maybe the group is not allowed, but they individually are allowed. So in this group, I'm generally giving them allow access to everything. So when I look up here now, upon adding an entity, and the new camera, new layout, new map, if most of the things or all of the things here I'm allowing, generally, I'm going to set this down here then to any new thing that's added. I want that also to set to allow. It just goes along with the sort of things that I'm setting up already in this group. Now, if I had everything as undefined in this group that I'm setting up, then any new entity I would add, I would probably choose the default automatically set to undefined. So these are definitely tied to what you want to do or how you have set these up already. So I'm going to set these to automatically set to allow. Any new entity that's added will be allowed. And I'll go to the next field. Now the next field we can see advanced privileges, and if we unexpand the three different things that we have access to, you can see we have mobile, we have admin center, and we have control center. Now this is a guards group that I'm setting up, keep in mind. Do I want my guards to be in admin center? Hardly ever. No, I don't. Because once I set up admin center, I'm done with it. I don't really go into it too often unless I want to make some changes. However, my control center is my workhorse. It's what my guard's going to be going into every day. So now notice mobile is allowed by default for everybody. So let's expand control center because this again is my guards group. So it makes sense to allow my guards to have most access to the things in control center. Now there are a couple of limitations. Based on the job titles and duties of the guards, do I want them to be able to log in? Probably. That makes a lot of sense. Do I want them to be able to shut down or minimize? Maybe that's not their job. Maybe their job is to watch live cameras only. If that was the case, maybe I would set this to undefined at least, for a soft deny, or just hard deny it straight out. Like if I click deny here, just like in our access rights, this will physically prevent any allows in any other groups that they're in the ability to allow them to do it. One deny is solid in stone. That's why you use undefined here. If I wanted to not give this person the rights to be able to shut down or minimize here, I may just choose these. Again, this is my guards group. I don't want them to shut down or minimize because my guards are live watching cameras, all day long. That's what their job is. Other people will be exporting and viewing things in playback and whatnot. So again, you can be very, very granular on the things that you allow right here. And again, maybe if I set Bob and Jim into another group where I actually allowed them to have access to shut down and minimize, this would not prevent them from being able to do so because I've set this to undefined here. Had I set this to deny, it doesn't matter what other groups Bob and Jim are in. If I grant them access to it with the allow button, these will always overrule any allows. So deny is a hard deny, undefined is a soft deny. So once we've gone through all of the individual settings and cameras and different things, now these are very important also. Exporting clips, taking snapshots, which is also an export. These should almost always be excluded to very few individuals. You don't want to let everybody have access to be able to export or take a snapshot, because once it leaves the system, it could end up anywhere, YouTube, TMZ, etc. And in a high profile case, which you never know when it could possibly occur, having too many people to have access to these two things is just a dangerous thing. So I wanted to add that in there. But anyway, once we've determined, based on looking through each and every one of these individual things that we want to actually give access to or prevent access to, and again, you need to look through the entire list to make sure that you're giving the appropriate rights to the people that you're creating this group for. And once that's done, now let's go ahead and minimize the control center and expand admin center. Now, admin center specifically, I'm not a big fan of letting guards, people that are in a guards group, into admin center unless they absolutely need to be able to get in here. And then at that point, I would only allow one or two, somebody, senior level folks that maybe needed to change passwords if you decided you don't want the guards to be able to change their own. Someone would have to have access to admin center then. But for the most part, just by leaving these all undefined over here, for the most part, they don't have access based on their group rights in this guards group that I'm creating. So if I hit next, I can hit finish. And as you can see, I now have a guards group. And if I click on the group itself, you can see that I have Bob and Jim in there. And I can manipulate those individual access rights and the individual privileges for each individual thing that we talked about when we were creating it. Now, we also know Jim and Bob are both in this group, right? So I'll go to an individual here. Here's Jim. Here's the two groups that he is in, users, which is a catch-all group that everybody is in, and the guards group, because he was in here when we just created this. We can actually set PTZ priorities based on the group, which is set at 50. If I wanted Jim, to have more access or stronger access or higher level access than all the other guards, the guards have a default user group level at 50. So if I simply came here and set this to 49, Jim is now the senior person. Any other guard is in the guard group, they have a level 50. He has one number lower than that, which is a higher priority, which gives Jim access to be able to take control of any PTZ over any of the guards that are using those 50. So definitely a lot of things here to look through on individual user privileges. Here's where we would change the password. Here's where individually, now again, Jim is in the guards group, and you can see all of his rights, or at least the vast majority of them, are inherited from the guards group themselves. Now notice we left managers at undefined, so nobody is giving rights to this. But if I put Jim into a different group where allow was the manager's layout, if I came to Jim's individual user account right here, I would see that other user group here, because that's where he's actually inheriting that allow access to, because he's in the other group and we give him allow access. This undefined is just soft deny, right? It doesn't prevent Jim from being in another group and getting access to this. If we go a little further, privileges are here, individuals. Now layouts are another thing as well. We're going to talk about that in assigning layouts, but basically to assign a layout, since we're talking about users and groups, we simply can add the guard's layout to this individual, hit save. Very important message right here. It's telling you if you're going to add a layout to somebody's account, so every time they log into Control Center, they see this tab right at the top. They can just click on it and see all the cameras that you've assigned for this layout. You have to make sure that they have access to the cameras that are in that layout. Very important. If they actually, and so you should always check, right? It's what it's telling you to do. I already am quite positive that we assigned those access rights for all of the cameras, so we're good to go. Which we just talked about. But if they weren't, when this person opened up Control Center and used this layout, they would have empty fields basically. And if they look down in their event tray, it would actually tell them you don't have rights to this camera. So it's always important to make sure that when you do add layouts to somebody's individual account, that they do have access or access rights to all of those individual cameras that we just talked about. For further FLIR security training, go to FLIR.com, then Products and Security. From the Security page, you would come to Support and then Training. On the training page, we have it divided currently between in-person training and online training. The in-person training includes certification classes in Latitude and many of our thermal technologies. The online training includes upcoming security webinars, which you see up here on the left, and recorded webinars, which of course continues to grow as we do the current webinars. But over on the right-hand side, you'll see our online training video library where we cover a number of different things in our repertoire. If we go to Latitude, you can see we have a series of Latitude training videos like this one that you just listened to, and we are adding to this list, and it is growing fast.